I am Minah, and today I'm going to be talking about studying in Norway as a foreign citizen. Basically, if you're not a Norwegian and you want to study here, this is like the most basic information that you're gonna have to have. I'm gonna be talking about the requirements, basically what you need to be able to apply and to be able to study here. And then I'm going to be talking about the financial aspect, like how much does school cost, and you know, how much money do you need to be here, and how much does accommodation cost, kinda. And then lastly, I'm going to be talking about student permit requirements, like the actual rules and what you can do and what you can't do and stuff like that. And that one is kind of important, so I urge you to watch it. Like if you don't want to listen to the other stuff, which makes no sense to me, you can just jump there. I'll try to remember to put a time code somewhere. I'm also going to be putting the websites that I'm using for information, which are, by the way, right here. So if you see me looking over there, it's because I need to verify that I'm saying the right stuff. I'll be putting all those websites in the description in English, so you have access to that as well. Okay, so what are the requirements if you want to study in Norway? Generally speaking, there aren't that many, in a way. Students within the EU or the EEA, which is what Norway is, by the way, it's EEA. Students within there don't have to apply for student visa at all. They just, you know, they can come here, and if they're going to study for more than 3 months, they have to register themselves as being here, I guess. And for students who are not part of the EU, they have to actually apply for student visa if they're going to study for more than 3 months or 90 days, I think. If you're going to study for less than that, you generally speaking don't need a visa, depending a little bit on the country. I urge you to check that up yourself, but generally speaking, you can visit Norway without a visa for less than 90 days. And that's just who needs to get a visa, but if you actually want to get into school, there are a few other requirements. First of all, the school you apply to, the school you want to study at in Norway, has to be approved by NOKUT, or NOKUT. I think, I'm not 100% sure about this, but I think that if you want to study in Norway and want to study at a university or so, it has to be approved by NOKUT, which is kind of like an organization that kind of makes sure that all the education you are taking is valid outside of wherever you're taking it. It basically means that it's, you know, it's valid outside of your own country as well. I think the school you want to apply to has to be approved by NOKUT, and there is a list for that, which is on the site that I will link to. I'm not 100% sure about that though. I got a little confused, honestly, but yeah, if you have education from outside of Norway, NOKUT also has information on your educational opportunities, which is great. So if you want to get into school, generally speaking, you have to have higher education entrance qualification, or as in Norway we call it generell studiekompetanse. It's basically what you get after you, like, you know, finish college and you actually graduate. In Norway that is 13 years of school. You finish that, you pass all your classes, you're good to go, generally speaking. But as this is for people that are not Norwegian citizens, I will leave, I'm gonna try to find it. I think it's on the site where you actually apply to colleges. I'm gonna see if I can find the list with the specific requirements for each nation to get in. Like, you know, it does depend a little bit, but generally speaking, if you finish high school, you're probably good to go. Sometimes you have to have 1 year of higher education in the country you're from, but you know. Also, if you have documentation that you have to show, which you probably do have, it needs to be in either English, Norwegian, Swedish, or Danish, and you have to get that done by a professional translator. Now we're moving into finance, which is, you know, I like that. I currently study economy, so that's the thing. The good news, the great news, and also, I'm gonna stop touching the microphone. The good news, the great news, and also one of the main reasons a lot of people come to, probably not the main reason, but one of the main reasons, I guess, a lot of people come to Norway to study is because public universities and colleges in Norway are free. They don't cost you anything, even if you're a foreign citizen. The only thing you have to pay is, generally speaking, you have to pay like a small registration fee. It's usually like a few hundred Norwegian kroners. I think they're like around 5 or 6 or 7. I don't know. It probably depends a bit, but it's not high. And then I think, I'm not 100% sure if it's required, but generally speaking, you will also be paying a fee to the student organization in whatever city you're in. So in Oslo there's one, in Bergen there's another one, Trondheim another one, you know. And when you pay the fee for that, I don't remember actually. I honestly don't remember how much that is, but that's not a lot either. You pay that fee and you'll have access to so many great resources as a student. Obviously, depending a little bit on where you are, like in a bigger city with lots of students, there's probably gonna be better offers and stuff. But we are talking like really good gym memberships, like cheaper gym memberships, and, you know, access to doctors and stuff like that for people who are from out of town, and also, you know, you get access to living facilities. So basically there are like buildings that are dedicated purely to the student organization that have lots of accommodation, like lots of rooms in different sizes and different qualities, and also with different, what's the word? The things you get. Like you can have a bathroom by yourself and then share a kitchen with others, or you can try to find a place that gives you both a bathroom and a kitchen by yourself, roommates and stuff like that. So that's really, really great. It's a lot cheaper than the private market, generally speaking. The standard isn't too high, but again, it's Norway, so it's not going to be bad anyways. But those fees are not high. What is going to be a high thing, high fee, high money, is if you decide that you want to study at a private school. Generally speaking, those can be really expensive, at least compared to free. I don't have a good number on how much they cost. That really depends a lot. But for example, like one of those big finance schools that's a privately owned school, apparently it's a pretty great school. But if I remember correctly, I think it's like over 70,000 Norwegian kroners per year. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's something like that. And I think that's a lot of money to pay when you could get the same kind of education at a school that is free. But I mean, you know, that kind of requires you to have good grades. So yeah, that's the thing. Now, while holding on to the finance theme thing, while also kind of moving into student permit requirements, as a student in Norway that is not a Norwegian citizen or not a Norwegian permanent resident, you're going to not get money. But you're not going to qualify to get a student loan from the Norwegian governmentally owned student loan organization, which is great. They give you money and they give you, you know, enough money to be okay, and you know, it's got a really nice, what's it called? Interest. It's got really like low interest, and it's, you know, the best loan you can have basically. As a foreign student, you're not going to be able to get that unless you are here like as a refugee or something. So you're not going to get money support from Norway to study in Norway, and you know, you need those monies just, you know, pay for rent and have food and, you know, that kind of stuff. And I looked it up on the site, and it says that you have to have enough money to live for, obviously, which is, according to the Norwegian education peoples, 111,657 kroners per year, and I think you have to come with that up front. And I just really quickly googled the exchange rate. That's $14,500 or 10,400-ish British pounds. So you're gonna have to have that money. I think you have to have it up front, or basically be able to show that, yeah, I have this money, I have it in either like a deposit account or a savings account or on my account or something like that. It can be a student loan, it can be a scholarship, it can be your own money on an account, which has to be in a Norwegian bank or at your school's bank. I'm not really sure how that works. The website just tells you to contact the school for that information. If, however, you have a part-time job in Norway, which you are allowed to have if you have a student visa, then that amount of money can kind of come down. So you don't have to have that much money up front if you already have like proof that you're gonna have a part-time job in Norway. And also, if you're gonna have to pay tuition fees, you're gonna have to have money for that as well. And I get that that sounds like a lot of money, and it is, honestly, it is, I think, a lot of money to have up front before you can go study in a country that's technically free to study. But I'm gonna move on to the requirements for the student visa permits requirements, student permit visa thing. Okay, so I'm just gonna go down the list, and the first one is that you have to pay a application fee. If you're over 18 years old and you want to apply for a student permit, you're gonna have to pay 5,300 as a fee. It's more than I thought it would be, actually, honestly. Yeah, and you have to apply for that before you enter Norway, generally speaking. The next requirement is that you have to have a confirmed acceptance into a college or a university. Third requirement is that you have to take your education full-time. So, you know, because in Norway you can have like, you can just take like part-time, or you can just take a few classes and stuff like that. But if you want to study in Norway as a foreigner, you have to take your education full-time, which amounts to at least 30 study points per semester. So that's 60 throughout a year. And then there's the requirement that you have to have enough money to live for, which I mentioned earlier, which is, you know, kind of a lot of money. Next requirement is that if you're gonna have to pay tuition fees, you have to be able to afford that too, so you have to have that money up front. Next requirement is that you have to have a place to live, a place to stay. If you pay for getting into the student organizations, I think you're actually going to be prioritized as a foreign student. Generally speaking, they prioritize people that are coming from out of town or people that are coming from far away before they prioritize local people. And then the last requirement to you as a foreign student is that the circumstance in the country you're coming from has to be in a way so that it is likely for you to be able to return home after you're studying. Basically, it's a rule that's there to make sure that people don't just come here to study, get a visa, and then never leave. And then there's the requirement for the actual study that you're taking, and I think I mentioned this earlier. The study place, basically where you are studying, the university or college, has to be on the list of NOKUT's list of approved universities. or colleges. Basically, that's a list of, you know, the places that are approved where you can study because it has to be approved for you to be here, and yeah. It will all be in the description, the links to these informations, sites and stuffs. And then the last thing, which I think is kind of like important, is your rights and your duties as a student. If you get a student permit, you are automatically allowed to work a part-time job for up to 20 hours per week. And then you can work full-time in the vacations, in the holidays. 20 hours per week is actually kind of high. Like, generally speaking, a full work week in Norway is like 37-ish hours plus breaks. And if I take this and I can just use like kind of like an average pay, if you just get a normal like job in a store or something, that's like 150 Norwegian kroners per hour-ish before taxes, and then times 20, that's 3,000 per week. You're gonna have to pay not that much tax actually. So that's 156 for a year. That's enough for you to be able to live here. So if you get a kind of full part-time job for 20 hours per week, you're going to be able to afford living here. And I think with that amount of money earned, you're going to pay ish 13% in taxes, which is going to leave you with like 135 Norwegian kroners to live for the entire year after taxes. Divide that by 12, because 12 months, you end up with, you know, somewhere over 11,000 Norwegian per month, which should be able to get you by. In comparison, students who get a student loan, full student loan, they get like 8,000 per month. However, they do get a little extra at the beginning of each semester, but you know. And yeah, more rights and stuff like that. Your husband or wife, basically your marital partner, or just your, what's it called? Domestic partner, and your children can usually apply to live with you in Norway. If they apply at the same time as you, you will usually get a response at the same time as well. And lastly, the time you're in Norway with this kind of student permit, like with this kind of permit to stay in Norway, is not going to count if you at a later time want to apply for a permanent residence in Norway. And that's mainly it. That's mainly the stuff that I find to be the most important. I'm not going to talk too much about living expenses. There is a video already on how much it will cost you to get an apartment in Norway that is in the private markets, the private sector. And I think I briefly mentioned what it would cost if you wanted to get a place to stay from the student organizations. So that video is gonna be linked somewhere. Hope you find it helpful. It doesn't really matter what kind of education you're gonna take. If you do a master or bachelor's, whatever, as long as it's higher education, you're gonna be good to go. I'm gonna put the resources in the description. And if there's anything else you wonder, let me know. Yay! Okay, I'm gonna go now. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe and let me know if there's anything else you'd like me to talk about. And I will see you next time. Ha det bra!